My name is Janet Herron. I am your host for today's event. We're coming here live from St. John's, Newfoundland, and I am an alumni engagement officer at Memorial University. I hope you're all well and safe as we live through and move forward through these very strange days. I'm here with Jennifer Kelly from Mindful Leadership, the second in our leadership series presented in partnership with the Gardner Center and supported by Johnson's Insurance. We will begin today's event with a land acknowledgement. Just give me 1 second to load it up.
We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which Memorial St. John's campus is situated as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognise the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatuhavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all of the peoples of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honour this beautiful land together. Please also recognise the peoples and their ancestors whose ancestral homelands are those on which your own institutions are situated.
Well, that was Dr. Neil Bowes giving our land acknowledgement. At the Office of Alumni Engagement, we are focused on offering many ways for you to connect with Memorial from anywhere in the world, and we are working diligently to create opportunities to celebrate, socialize, mentor, learn, and advance both your career and improve your life. Embarking on new and exciting ways to build relationships is vital to our evolution as an institution. You, our alumni and friends, are our greatest ambassadors. You are a worldwide community of professionals, leaders, and change makers who advance the reputation of our university, our province, and our world. Please consider getting involved with our programming. There are mentoring opportunities with 10,000 coffees, occasions to meet up with NL expats through Global NL, and Coastlines, our online book club, features Newfoundland and Labrador authors who are also Memorial alumni. You can find more details about all these initiatives on our website, www.mun.ca/alumni. Thank you for joining us for our event today. Mindful Leadership is the second in our leadership series offered in partnership with the Gardner Center and supported by Johnson's Insurance. The Gardner Center is part of the Faculty of Business Administration at Memorial. They are an award-winning professional development hub that offers practical certificate programs and courses in a variety of business, leadership, and organizational topics. With the onset of COVID-19, the Gardner Center has moved all training online, which can now be accessed worldwide. Being well known for practical professional development, the Gardner Center has worked hard to maintain a high level of interactivity and engagement in the virtual classroom, and I encourage you to check them out. I'll also be monitoring the Q&A function that you see on your screen. If you'd like to ask a question, you can type it in there, and Jennifer will be answering as many questions as possible following her presentation. And please try to keep your questions short, approximately 250 characters. Also, please note that this session is being recorded and will be available on the Alumni Engagement website following this event. We have been reaching out to our alumni for their thoughts on our presenters. Stein Kruger, who I believe is out there in the audience somewhere, has this to say about Jennifer. In such recent dark and tumultuous times, Jennifer is a leading light of positivity and workplace wellness and happiness. She guides her sessions with kind-heartedness and empathy. By the end of a session with Jennifer, you leave feeling better about yourself, and you feel equipped with practical tools to tackle the day and what lies ahead. She makes you feel that positive psychology and workplace wellness are achievable and manageable. Jennifer Kelly is a certified positive psychology coach and is a subject matter expert in positive psychology wellness, conflict management, and workplace communications. Jennifer works with the Gardner Center as both an instructor and a curriculum development consultant. And now I'm going to pass the presenter duties over to Jennifer, and she's going to take you through her presentation.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, and I'm going to stop my video.
Okay, everyone, just give me a moment to put my presentation into slideshow. And I'm hoping everybody can see my PowerPoint presentation. And Janet, you can give me a signal if you're not seeing the slides flow. Let's just do a quick test here. Perfect. I haven't heard from Janet, so I'm going to take that as a good thing. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today for this short presentation on, oh, thank you, Andrea. I appreciate that. Thank you all for joining me today for this short presentation on mindful leadership. I encourage you to have a pen and a piece of paper nearby. There may be instances where I ask you to reflect on a particular point or to jot something down. You may also find using your computer just as good for this. For example, you can open up Microsoft Word and type in some thoughts and reflections. It is my pleasure to be here with all of you today on this journey. I'd like you to think of this presentation as a journey toward mindfulness. Specifically, we are going to look at where mindfulness and its practices can fit into our work environments. Whether you are a leader joining me, you will definitely find some practices that you can use in your leadership style with your teams. But really, mindfulness practices can be incorporated in any workplace, in any team setting, and in any industry or role. So I welcome you and I invite you to join me on this journey toward mindfulness and mindful leadership. Let's start by thinking about what mindfulness is. I can tell you one thing for sure. Mindfulness is popular. Mindfulness is appearing all the time now in popular culture. There are news articles about mindfulness. It's appearing in social media. There are even mindfulness challenges like the Take 5 Mindfulness Challenge that recently emerged from the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. You're seeing apps on mindfulness. There's even a meditation mindfulness channel on Netflix. So what does this tell us? It tells us that mindfulness is becoming embedded in our popular culture. But what exactly is it? I want to begin by talking to you about how I was introduced to mindfulness and some thoughts and impressions that I held about mindfulness. This was my original impression of mindfulness. Before I trained in the area of positive psychology, I always pictured mindfulness to involve somebody sitting quietly, doing some deep breathing, like they were meditating. I'm wondering if some of you have also thought of this image when you hear the word mindfulness. While some of these physical aspects, such as closing your eyes or being present, is a part of mindfulness, there is so much more to the practice of mindfulness. When I completed my training in positive psychology, my trainer introduced mindfulness to me by comparing it to a train. So stay with me here as I break down this analogy because it's going to make sense to you as we continue on with the presentation. So the first thing about mindfulness is that it's grounded in the present moment, and it involves present moment awareness of your thoughts. So my trainer compared our thoughts and the thousands of thoughts we sometimes have hourly to that of passing trains in a busy train station. There are hundreds and hundreds of trains whizzing by us in a train station, just like our thoughts. But here's the thing, when we are mindful, we get to choose whether or not we board one of those thought trains. Being mindful means that we get to consciously choose whether or not we buy into a thought, whether or not we attach meaning to the thought, and whether or not we become emotional with the thought. Mindfulness makes us just passengers who are observing all those thought trains, and we get to ultimately choose which thought trains we will board. This analogy changed my entire life, and I began realizing the importance of mindfulness when it comes to the ability for me to control my reactions. But what is it? We've talked about a lot what you might be thinking when you think of mindfulness. I've shared with you what I used to think it involved, and I've shared with you what my trainer taught me. But let's look at a more formal definition, and I'll give you a moment to read what's on the screen. Mindfulness means keeping one's complete attention to the experience on a moment-to-moment basis. And here's the key. So being presently aware, but in an open and non-judgmental way. So you are aware of what's happening in the present moment, and you are focused in the present moment, but you're doing so in an open, non-judgmental way. And we'll talk more about this as I move through our short presentation. What is a mindful leader? What does mindful leadership look like? A leader who practices mindfulness in their team or their workplace or in their leadership style is someone who has self-awareness, who inspires others, and who leads with authenticity. But how do they get there? We all know that to lead with authenticity and to inspire others must involve some kind of practice and behavior. And you're absolutely right, it does. Mindfulness is what gives the mindful leader the ability to be self-aware, to be aware of their own thoughts, and to be aware of what they're bringing to a given situation or person. How do they inspire others? Well, when we are mindful and in the present, we are truly present with those present with us. That means that our dialogue and conversations with those around us are based in mindfulness. We are focused on the person exclusively. The person whom we are speaking with or exchanging a dialogue with feels validated because they feel that they are truly being listened and heard. This has been proven in research to build interpersonal relationships at work. And authenticity, how does being mindful lead us to being a more authentic leader? Well, we are more in tune to ourselves, to our thoughts, to our reactions, and ultimately, we are more tuned in to how we are showing up in the world. Present moment awareness, mindfulness, gives us this. Now, this doesn't just happen out of magic. How do we get here? And here's the thing, mindfulness again has really come up in popular culture, but yet there's not a whole lot around how it actually works. How do you embed it into your practice? Well, I'm going to share with you a secret from positive psychology. We embed mindfulness into our work life and into our personal life by using what we call anchors. And this is a term from positive psychology, and I'll show you what these anchors are. Breath, the body, the brain, and the heart. So these 4 anchors are used to ground us in mindfulness practices. We know that we are going to get pulled away from that present moment awareness that is so important in mindfulness. How do we get that back? Well, we know that an anchor grounds things, it sinks things. So these anchors, the breath, the body, the brain, and the heart, help ground us back into mindfulness. We've talked a lot about what mindfulness is and what it looks like. What about what it isn't? I'd like you to look at the image in the top of my screen there towards the right. The image is of a professional walking down a street while looking at his smartphone. Haven't we all done this? I think we can all fully say we've been this individual. But here's the thing. We are not mindful when we are rushing through work tasks without being attentive. We are not mindful when we are multitasking like the gentleman in the photo. And we are not mindful when we fail to notice the feelings and energy of those around us. And we are not mindful when we are preoccupied with the past or the future. I want to expand on this last bullet point. The present moment is hard to find. Here is what often prevents people from truly being grounded in the present moment. We are often ruminating about the past. Yesterday, I did this at work. Yesterday, this happened. Well, 5 years ago, that client responded to me in that way. We are looking toward the past. If not the past, we're looking toward the future. What if this proposal is not accepted? What if the client doesn't take my latest offer? I like to think of the past and the future as the bookends to something. So we know that with bookends, there's something in the middle, and that's mindfulness. So the past is this bookend, the future is this bookend. What's in the middle is mindfulness, present moment awareness. It's not to say that we're going to be fully able to cut off our thoughts of the past or the future. It's just that we'll use our anchors to ground us back to mindfulness. So why should we bother to incorporate mindfulness into our leadership style or into our workplaces? The first benefit of mindfulness is creativity. When we are multitasking or trying to accomplish multiple things at once, our brains get really clogged, and that leaves less space for innovation and creative ideas. When we practice mindfulness, we will get the benefit of having a more positive approach with those around us. Remember earlier I talked about how our interactions with others are elevated when we're mindful because we are present with those who are present with us. People feel that they are being listened to and focused on. This automatically leads to a more positive dialogue and interaction. A third benefit of mindfulness is fewer cognitive errors. It's not to say that you're going to do everything perfectly, but when you focus in on a task with careful attention, you'll notice that that attention leads you to be able to complete tasks with fewer errors. And finally, one of the most primary benefits of mindfulness is that it lowers our stress and it helps us to be better able to cope with challenges. There's less rumination when we are focused on the present moment versus the past and the future. And research tells us that it's rumination that often causes stress. I want to use the example of me here with all of you today. So I have to do multiple things at once. I'm moving the slides, I'm clicking the buttons so the bullets come back in. I am looking at the camera, trying to envision you all listening to me. All of these things are happening all at once. and it prevents me from being mindful with you. So what do? I simply try to ground myself by looking into the camera. It's a way that I use mindfulness when I'm teaching. I'm essentially using an object. So even though I'm doing different things at once, I choose to focus my present moment awareness on all of you. I picture all of you out there listening to me. And when I focus on that feeling, I'm better able to manage all that's happening around me. I'm also, believe it or not, I'm nervous. Of course I'm nervous. You've taken the time to join me today. I want to do a good job. But I'm aware of those thoughts. I let them come into play, but I don't give them my attention. That's just a short lesson. We're going to dive deeper in how you can use similar practices to ground you. There are 3 components of mindfulness that I'd specifically like to focus on with you today. The first is attention. The second is open awareness. And the third is choice. Attention. Well, we focused a lot on that so far. It's essentially paying attention to what is occurring in the moment. This is that present moment awareness that I've been speaking a lot about. But it's also awareness of your thoughts, of any physical sensations that might be happening in your body, for example, a fluttering heart rate, and any emotions that may be coming up for you. Even as I talk, there may be emotions that come up for you as I share my own examples or as you see a picture on the screen. Notice that it's just the word attention. So you are aware of the thoughts going on in your internal dialogue. You're aware of the physical sensations and you're aware of your feelings, but it's just that, awareness. You don't have to do anything with those thoughts or those sensations or feelings. You simply observe them and become aware of them. That's component 1 in mindfulness, attention and awareness. Paying attention, but not really. How many of you think you're listening to me, but in actuality, you're probably doing something in the background, and that's okay. It's hard to focus, especially now in a busy society and with so many external challenges facing us. I used to think I was the queen of multitasking. I was so proud of it that I even tried to do some research on whether or not a particular brain could multitask more. It turns out it is true that there is a section of our brain that can multitask better. However, is that really me being mindful? I've learned over the years that the answer is no. So when I'm doing multiple things at the same time, I'm failing to be present with my task and I'm failing to be present to the person who's speaking to me. And that has caused me to really lose out on vital cues and information or mistakes I may have missed because I'm rushing or I'm multitasking. So now I really try hard to focus in on one task, even if I do it for just 10 minutes. The second of the 3 components of mindfulness is open awareness. This one is so interesting to me and very powerful. So it kind of connects back to the first one, which was attention. So there's awareness of your thoughts, but it's also awareness of thoughts and any judgments you might have towards others or yourself. Often throughout the day, we're labeling things and people as we go. It's not intentional, right? Remember the train? There are thousands of thoughts whizzing by us all the time. So we are unconsciously labeling situations, people, and thoughts. This is good. This is bad. This means this. In mindfulness, you don't go as far to put those labels on the situation or person. Instead, you become simply aware. When you are aware of your thought patterns, your judgments and thoughts, whether positive or negative, you have the opportunity to choose a different thought or reaction. Speaking of choice, that's the third of the three components of mindfulness. This to me is the most powerful, empowering message that mindfulness brings. We can choose. When we are mindful, we are involved in conscious versus automatic behavior. Now, this all goes back to the thoughts and that train analogy I talked about. Remember, there are thousands of thoughts whizzing past us all the time. We are passengers in the busy train station of our minds, and there's so many thoughts whizzing by, and sometimes we will just jump on those trains. But if we take a moment to be mindful, we give ourselves a choice. Instead of automatically attaching a label to someone, an emotion to a situation, or a thought to ourselves, we become mindful, we become aware of where we are, and we decide how we respond. We notice our thoughts and reactions to a given situation, but we just notice. See how the components are all connected? You're in the present moment, which leads to greater awareness, which leads to the opportunity to choose how you respond. And when we have the opportunity to choose, we can choose a constructive thought or behavior over something that may be more destructive for us. But that's up to you. Only you can choose. Remember, thoughts are those busy trains, but we don't always have to jump on that train. When we are in present moment awareness, the awareness of our thoughts and emotions, of ourselves and others, gives us the opportunity to choose conscious behavior over automatic. I'd like to conclude by sharing 4 specific practices that you can bring back to your workplace. This is where I'd like you to get out your pen and notepad if you haven't already to jot some of these down, or open up Microsoft Word on your computer to do that. The first one, you shouldn't be surprised at this. I'd like you to try being more consciously present. I'll give you a moment to read what's on the screen. This is all about paying attention to the internal dialogue you have before you start your workday. Ask yourself, what is going on with me internally today? Are there negative reactions or thoughts or energy from yesterday that I've carried into this present moment? Are the things I've carried from the past, are they affecting my ability to show up in a mindful way? And then ask yourself, how do I want to show up to those around me? Do I want to have a clean slate? Because that's what you get when you are in the present moment? Or do you want to be bogged down by thoughts that might be coming from the past? So this just takes a few minutes to ask yourself, what's going on for you internally, and how do I want to show up? Remember those anchors I talked about? What we can do to help us achieve mindfulness? Well, here are your how-to anchors to be consciously present. Breath. Breath is a big part of mindfulness. Remember in the beginning, I said that I pictured someone breathing deeply. That was my first impression. Well, breathing is a big part, specifically mindful breathing. I'm going to show you once, and then I'm going to invite you to do this with me. So remember, you would do this before you started your workday or task. You would breathe in for a 4 count and breathe out for a 4 count. Here we go. I'm breathing in for 1, 3, 4, and I'm breathing out for 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone try it with me now. All right, sit up nice and straight. You're breathing in for a 4 count and breathing out. Ready? Here we go. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Amazing job, everyone. So see how you took that moment to slow yourself down by using your breath. And by focusing on the 4 count, guess what? You became more consciously present. So you can do this before you start a task or even your work day. A second way you can ground yourself in the present is through choosing a mindful object. Here is my mindful object. This is my dad's work badge from when he was a manager at Eastern Health. My dad is the most important person in my life. Unfortunately, he's not with me anymore, but I choose to make his work tag my mindful object. So when I picked this up, I associate this with the lessons he's taught me around optimism, and I associate it as a grounding tool. So what can your object be that you can take up at the beginning of your day or task, hold on to it, and tune in to being mindful? The second strategy is to slow down to speed up. This is a mindful way of working. It means slowing down your task to make it more purposeful. So how can we do that? Here are your anchors for slowing down to speed up. Avoid multitasking. I'm one, right, to tell you, considering how proud I am of my multitasking. But I can tell you that multitasking over a long period of time will work against your desire to be mindful. So try this. Try taking just 10 minutes at the beginning of any task and focusing exclusively on that task. 10 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Over time, you'll add 10 minutes on every hour. So 10 minutes on the hour, you are focusing on one task and you're not multitasking. The second anchor is going to be another challenging one. Let's get rid of these. These are pretty distracting and they take us out of the present moment. Again, just put them away for 10 minutes on the hour. Challenge yourself to be more focused on a task or person exclusively for just 10 minutes. The third practice to bring back into your workplace is called practicing being contemplative. This means taking the time to reflect and contemplate on how you want to show up today and what you want to bring into your day. There are 2 ways you can do this, through intentions and visualizations. What are my anchors for this? Affirmation. So an affirmation is a special quote or an acronym that you create to remind yourself to become mindful or to bring back your attention to the present moment. The second is visualization. Visualization can involve a quick 3 minutes of you visualizing yourself as being how you want to show up. You just take a couple of minutes. You can actually do that 4 count breath as you do this and just visualize yourself really quickly performing at your best or accomplishing a task in your best way. Now, some of you might be out there thinking, oh, now, Jennifer, you said thinking about the future isn't mindful. Well, you're very right. Visualization is not, though, thinking about the future in the terms of forecasting. Visualization is actually done a few moments before you go into a mindful state, and it just prepares your mind to visualize the best outcome for yourself. So I do this before I come and join wonderful participants like you to teach. I will literally take 2 minutes and I will visualize myself talking and hopefully helping someone. So I'm going to give you one of my best kept secrets. This is my affirmation, the ape affirmation. This is a saying that I use all the time to help ground me in a contemplative way. Because you can always control your inner ape, your attitude, your preparation, and your effort. So that's an example of an affirmation. My last strategy for you to bring back into the workplace is to encourage your team members to make mindfulness and other wellness practices a part of your culture. How to? Well, here's one of my favorite strategies. Have your team build what I call a wellness wall. On your wellness wall, you can make it all about positive elements. One of my favorite terms from positive psychology is positive gossip. Positive gossip means displaying or sharing rewarding and inspiring things being done by your colleagues and people around you. You can post this on your wall, or you can share company success stories. It puts people in a mindful frame of mind because you're focusing on the present successes that's happening. A second anchor is to actually have a mindful moment at the end of your virtual or in-person meetings. Take 3 minutes for people to be silent and contemplative. You could actually run a mindfulness exercise from one of those mindfulness apps. Let people enjoy this at the end of a meeting to diffuse tension and stress. And my last anchor for bringing workplace wellness with mindfulness into your workplace is what's called fireside chats. This is my term that I use for a dialogue that's mindful. People are in tune with each other as they speak. They are focused on each other. They are mindfully listening. This will boost relationships and interactions at work. Everyone, I've reached the end of my short presentation, and before we get into the questions and answers, I just want to thank you so much for being part of this journey. You joined on my sailboat here, and you were wonderful voyagers to have on the journey into mindful leadership. I can't wait to hear from everyone, and I will now turn it back to Janet. And Janet, I'm ready for you now when you'd like to come on.
I'm coming in.
Great.
It was wonderful, Jennifer. Thank you so much. That was really insightful.
Thank you.
Really important to think about how we can incorporate mindfulness into a workplace culture. And I love the phrase passengers in the busy train station of our lives. I tell you, that's like, I got to write that one down. We had a couple of people ask to see a couple of the slides a second time.
Sure.
So I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you to bring up the second slide and the fourth slide. And then there was also a question about the slide before the wellness walls. Okay, so I'm going to pass that ball back to you. And if you could show slide 2 and 4 and the slide before the wellness walls.
No problem. All right, I'll load that again. All right, everyone. So I'm going to get my PowerPoint out again, and I will just exit out here, and I'm going to go to slide 2. Janet, was that it?
Slide 2 and slide 4.
Okay, so here's slide 2, which is just my metaphor for journeying to explore a different concept. Slide 4 is my image taken from different pieces of mindfulness in magazines and social media.
Okay, so Cindy, are those the slides that you wanted to see? She'll let us know in the chat, hopefully.
Sure.
Yeah, those are the slides she wanted to see. And the other slide someone asked to see again was the slide prior to the wellness walls.
Right here?
Was that the one? Yes. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Oh, great. Great.
Perfect. Okay. That's great. Now, we do have some questions.
Okay.
Jillian Norris would like to know, how do you think about it so that you're not wrapped up in whatever meaning is behind? Okay, sorry, I'm going to start again. I beg your pardon, Jillian. She has a question about using an object to ground yourself. So like the photo you used of your dad. How do you think about it so that you're not wrapped up in whatever meaning is behind the object and it does indeed ground you? Is it that you choose something that reminds you of your current strengths or abilities? Such a good question.
Oh my gosh, that is an incredible, incredible question. And how insightful of you to notice that that element was missing in my description of it. So that is so insightful. I can't get over that. So let's go back to the example. So you're absolutely right. When we choose an object, we do have to take a moment to also choose what the object will represent to us. So when I see my dad's work tag, and this is from when he created his own business, so all these qualities are wrapped up in this little tag for me. And determination, drive, optimism. So those are the three terms I link with this object. So when I look at it, I automatically think about those characteristics or elements. Then I'll think in a mindful way, well, how can I bring those to this situation? And that's what grounds me, thinking about what it represents. So you are right. You do have to assign a meaning to your object that will also prevent you from kind of ruminating over what else the object may mean. So a great example is if I just looked at this all the time with no meaning attached, I'd probably get really sad. I mean, my dad means everything to me and he's not with me. So I could get very sad looking at this. So that's why I've chosen to associate those three terms. Does that help?
I think it does help.
Okay.
Okay, here's another question. How do you get buy-in from others, management and coworkers on the benefits of mindfulness? That's from Deanne.
Deanne, what a great question. So, just today I was talking about doing this talk as a full course. And I was just talking with a colleague and I was nervous, believe it or not, because you are right. Buy-in for mindful leadership is tough. And I'm always really conscious of that. So you're right. If you're sensing that it's tough to get buy-in, you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of people do associate mindfulness with, like I said, people meditating comes up a lot. Leaders and workplaces might think it's just kind of foolish, and it's hard to get around that. So what I do is I use positive psychology. Positive psychology, for those not familiar, is basically based in research. It's the study of wellness through science and research, and mindfulness is a big piece of positive psychology. So Deanne, what I would recommend is just doing some quick research on positive psychology and mindfulness. There's a wonderful site I do use, which I can get Janet to send out. And then I would just capture a few points and make a short visual pitch to your manager or your team. Here's the research grounded theories on why mindfulness is good for a workplace. And that can help distill some of those myths around mindfulness. So I will send out the link to my favorite site on research and positive psychology.
That's great. We actually had a fantastic question here. Do you have any ideas for remote working mindfulness moments with staff when we all work from home?
Yeah, I do. So one of my favorites, even though I just talked about how meditation can kind of block us from thinking that there's more to mindfulness, but a really great exercise to do with virtual teams is what I call intentional grounding. So I'll give you a moment to write that down, intentional grounding. So this is where we take a few minutes at the end of a meeting or a presentation or a team getting together to intentionally ground ourselves. So we'll work with the body and the mind. So you might ask your team to kind of sit up a little bit straighter. I'll ask people to take their palms and place them on their knees. That's a very grounding type of movement with the body. Then you just kind of relax your elbows into the side, and then you choose what you'd like to kind of focus on. So maybe it's doing a few deep breaths, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube and online for this. Or maybe it's something that your team decides. You can actually do some grounding around 3 things that you're grateful for as a team. So while you're in your grounded physical position, you can focus on 3 things that you're grateful for as a team. And gratitude really grounds us and tends to bring us back into the present. So that's one of my favorite tips, intentional grounding. So working with the body to sit in a grounded position, hands on top of the knees, elbows into the sides, and then focusing on 3 things your team is grateful for.
That's great. Joanne Bath wants to know more about fireside chats carried out virtually. That's intriguing, you got to admit.
It is, yeah. So I'd like to think that I'm creative because I'm mindful. Remember, mindfulness leads to creativity. So that was a term, first of all, I created myself, because when we think of a fireside, we think of a little bit more of a kind of a cozy, inclusive setting, right? Where, you know, it's kind of deep and it's involved. So that term is my own. So virtually, you're right. It's going to be more challenging, right? You know, how do we stay grounded with the person when we're just seeing them over the computer? So I'll tell you, I think my best answer is to tell you what I do, because I'm teaching all the time and I don't get the same deep connection with my students. When one of them talks, I will basically choose to really focus in on their face, not in a date-longing type way, just in a very sort of, I just try to tune in on listening to tiny inflections in their voice. Like if I notice kind of a hesitation in their voice, I'll notice it more when I'm kind of focused in. I'll notice expressions in their face, and you can pick it up on this virtually. You just have to devote yourself to focusing on the person. Really try to feel their energy and listen to sounds in their voice. Look at the expressions on their face. So it does involve a little bit of a physical awareness. So you're kind of looking for physical characteristics, and you're really focused on them, and you're minimizing the internal dialogue that's going on when you're talking.
Another question here from Karen Peddle. Do you have any books that you would recommend to help to develop a mindfulness practice?
Oh, what a great question. So I work in positive psychology, so all my books are in positive psychology. So even my mindfulness books are based on positive psychology research. So I'd like to give that some thought, if you permit me. Just give me some thought to that, and I'll actually go to one of my best resource sites, and I'll get Janet to send out maybe 3 or 4 ideas for books.
Yeah, when we'll follow up today's presentation with an email that will include some additional information from Jennifer, including book recommendations or any other links that she might have for you. So you'll have a second chance to get a little bit more information. We have a really great question here from Katrina. And she's asking, would you agree that mindfulness has application for any task that you find difficult to complete and for which you are not totally interested in, but need to complete either in your professional or personal life? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm dying to know the answer to that one, Jennifer.
Yeah, I feel like I have practitioners online with me. Like, you're all offering such amazing questions and insights. So yes, the answer is yes. Mindfulness can be used rather as a tool to apply when you're struggling with a task that you don't like, or that you find frustrating or even boring. So this happens to me. I mean, I do a lot of contract work, and some contracts don't align with my interests, and you know, sometimes I'm less motivated. So what I'll try to do is just really focus on a piece that maybe I like as a person. So I'll give an example. One task I'm doing now, which is kind of out of my main skill set, you know, I'm not really interested in, but I get a chance to talk to a lot of people, and I love that part. So I tend to focus my energy on that piece, and then I focus on listening to their stories. It's related actually to a coaching discipline in positive psychology. For some reason, it's not jiving with me. But when I talk to people, that's where I put my energy. And then afterwards, I've got a renewed motivation. I just think, well, I love the people part. So now I'm going to extend that mindful attention to the task itself. And sometimes I will think about what the people shared with me and how much I enjoyed the dialogue. And then I'm a little bit more focused then on the task.
Jocelyn would like you to repeat the 4 practices for a mindful workplace, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course, Jocelyn. Just let me go down here. So I'll just kind of I'll just read them quickly. So there are 4 that I suggested. So the first is to be more present at work. And these are some thoughts I invite you to take a picture of with your smartphone if you'd like, or to write them down. So 3 minutes before you begin your task, you ask yourself these questions. What's going on for me? How do I want to show up? And you just be really attentive before you start a task, and that helps you stay attentive. Giving you a moment to take a shot or some notes.
Yep.
And I suggested breath and an object for that one. The second one was called slow down to speed up. So that means deliberately slowing down how you work. So you're avoiding multitasking, you're putting away devices. Some of you might get a clock. So this is my mindful clock. This is my cat mindful clock, which I will time for 10 minutes of me to not multitask. And, you can do this just for 10 minutes on a task. And again, it's really important to remove things that might interfere with present moment awareness. The third out of the 4th was what I called being contemplative. So this one is a little bit deeper than the rest, but it involves setting an affirmation or an intention, or visualizing how you'd like the day to go. So even though this one is a little bit more future focused, it does ground you because it puts you in a mindset of, this is how I want to show up. And then I shared my personal affirmation, which I didn't create, but I heard from, believe it or not, a football coach. I'm a big football fan, and I was just so amazed by this. And I was like, the ape. I love the ape affirmation. So that's one way you can do that. And then the last one was around the fireside chats and bringing wellness to your workplace. So building a wellness wall, getting people to do mindfulness at the end of a virtual meeting or the fireside chats.
That's great. Julia Halfyard is really interested in the idea of a mindful object, and she's wondering if you could talk a little bit more about this and how to choose one.
Yeah, wonderful, Julia. So since you've asked me, I'm actually going to grab another mindful object. Give me a second. All right. So you got to see my colorful pillows then too. It worked out. So this, so it doesn't have to be something, and this ties back to a question asked to me earlier. It doesn't have to be something that you attach like a person. Like I said, this, looking at my dad like this might become sad for me if I hadn't assigned him certain terms to ground me. So the other thing is I'll often choose something that I associate with being calm or mindful. So this is another one of my objects. So this is a little sailboat. And so notice how my sailboat is really prevalent in my actual presentation. So I use the sailboat to remind me about mindfulness and resilience and positive psychology and all those values that I really want to hold dear. So my answer to you is to choose an object based on your values. So the sailboat to me symbolizes my values around being optimistic, around practicing positive psychology. Maybe you have a value in the shape of a necklace. This is my third object. No surprise, but guess who's inside this locket? My dad and I. So maybe you have an object that represents your values or something that's important to you, and that's how you can choose. And finally, I won't belay this too much longer, sorry. You can also choose something more basic. For example, if you just need to grip a highlighter or a pen to kind of ground you back, that's using the body, right? Clenching the fist, you can do that too.
Great. I think we got time for one last question. Someone is sharing that they set up a Pets and Positive Thoughts Teams channel where members of our team can post pet pictures or happy thoughts. Is this the sort of thing you're referring to with a wellness wall?
Absolutely, and what a brilliant idea. So I put the wellness wells in there because mindfulness is a part of wellness. So I want to give people an opportunity to think about other things beyond mindfulness, really attributes in positive psychology, which is the study of wellness, and how they can infuse it in their workday. So I absolutely love that idea. I would love to be a part of that group. So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Listen, people have been fantastic on this chat. They've been sharing names of books and things like that. So we're going to include that in the follow-up email to everybody.
Great.
So that is awesome. Now I am just going to, because we do have to, unfortunately, we got to wind it up now. I mean, we could talk about mindfulness all afternoon. But it is time to go. So I would just like to thank Jennifer so much for such an enlightening and uplifting conversation, really. I think we all really enjoyed it and we all really needed this. And thanks to all of you out there for attending and for your great questions. And if you enjoyed today's event, our third leadership series session is going to be held on March the 30th at 1 p.m. And it will feature Dr. Diane Ford discussing managing stress for you and your team. And there's a link to register on our website. And as I indicated earlier, this event has been recorded, and we will be following up with an email with some additional links and information and information from people in the chat about books that have helped them. And thank you just so much. Keep an eye on your inbox, and thanks for joining us here today. And thanks again to Jennifer for sharing all her knowledge with us. And that's it. Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.